Hey, good morning, everybody, or afternoon, depending on where you are. I'm Bob Lucero, Executive Director here at the Northern Virginia Regional Commission, and we appreciate your joining us for this webinar on the SolarAPP++, plus also the new SolSmart Platinum designation, which I hope some of our local government colleagues would consider applying for and be designated for. 6 of our 9 local jurisdictions already designated, and I know the 7th is on its way, and I spoke to another the other day, and they will be applying as well. They're looking to hire a sustainability director. I think Northern Virginia is a leader in the Commonwealth in encouraging folks to go solar, and our local governments have been very proactive in helping those folks who are interested in going solar to make the process as easy as possible. I will now turn this over to Nick Kaza from the Department of Energy. Thank you to Nick, our colleagues at NREL and at the town of Culpeper. I'm a local government guy myself, so thank you, town of Culpeper, or county of Culpeper, for joining us this morning. So Nick, I'm going to turn this over to you.
Sounds good. Thanks, Bob. And thank you all for joining today. As Bob said, we're going to talk about SolarAPP Plus and SolSmart as well. In between there, we're going to hear from Culpeper County and what their SolarAPP Plus experience has been like. I believe they've been exploring and piloting the platform for about a year now, or probably close to a year. SolarAPP Plus, it is not an app. As much as the name suggests it is an app, it is actually a software platform that allows solar installers to enter permit information online at any time, and it is instantaneously checked to make sure that it is code compliant. And if the system does see that it is code compliant, the approval can be automatically approved, payment accepted, and it'll even include a customized checklist for inspections based on the inputs. So it is a fantastic software tool that allows you to streamline and really simplify your residential solar PV and PV plus storage system permitting. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Katie and Emily from the National Renewable Energy Laboratory, and they're going to walk through a little bit more detail what SolarAPP is.
Hi, thanks, Nick. Yeah, I'm going to share slides here. Give me 1 second. All right, hopefully everybody can see that. Awesome. Well, to start, thank you all for joining today to learn more about SolarAPP, which stands for the Solar Automated Permitting Process. For the next 15 minutes or so, I'm just going to give you an introduction to the tool and kind of what it's all about. So just to start with a little bit of background, the National Renewable Energy Lab, or NREL, is one of 17 national labs founded and funded by the U.S. Department of Energy to tackle the critical scientific challenges of our time. Specifically, NREL focuses on finding creative answers to today's energy challenges and has decades of focused leadership in clean energy research, development, and deployment. For SolarAPP, NREL collaborated with the team of experts that are shown on the left-hand side of the screen here to develop an online permitting platform that automates rooftop solar plan review and produces code-compliant approvals instantaneously. To do this, we worked with solar industry groups, code bodies like the ICC, the building safety community, environmental organizations, and then, of course, local governments to develop SolarAPP. The platform is entirely free for jurisdictions to adopt, and we consider it a driver of economic development for local governments. Our data shows that economic growth compounds once online permitting moves to a fully online system, and grows even more so once that process incorporates instantaneous permit approvals. As just one example, once the city of San Jose took the step to automate PV approvals, they experienced a 6-fold increase in growth. The resulting economic growth from automated permitting creates an infusion of local resources and generates a greater amount of government revenue for less effort. Additionally, SolarAPP is meant to make online automated permit processing more accessible. SolarAPP is available 24/7, which means that permits can be issued at any time instantaneously, and solar installation can proceed without any delay. This helps make the process of solar installation much faster and more efficient than the traditional processes, and assist jurisdictions in meeting their sustainability goals. One other thing that we like to mention on this slide is that SolarAPP adoption is supported by the U.S. Conference of Mayors. Given conversations that we've had with dozens of local governments, we notice the trend that rooftop solar projects tend to have very consistent designs. So residential rooftop PV projects with one module and one inverter are really common, easy to approve, and often take no more than an hour to actually review. But just because of the sheer volume of applications, they often end up sitting in a queue before they actually get reviewed. Because of these commonalities across designs, we estimate that SolarAPP can cover about 70 to 80% of the permits that are submitted for solar and approve them without any delays. This slide summarizes the systems that are currently compatible with SolarAPP. So right now, SolarAPP is focused on residential PV and is going to be compatible with the 2017 and 2020 NEC and the 2018 and 2021 IBC and IRC. And then, of course, in California, we would be compliant with Title 24. Additionally, SolarAPP can now permit PV plus storage projects, and nearly all jurisdictions that are actively using the tool have now adopted this feature. Also shown here on the slide are features that we are planning to include in SolarAPP. So SolarAPP is going to be continuously updated based on new codes and will continue to add new technologies to our eligibility portfolio. In the future, SolarAPP will be able to approve applications for EV chargers and hopefully even more. Countrywide, there has been an abundance of interest in SolarAPP. So currently we have over 170 jurisdictions who have fully adopted or are piloting SolarAPP. We've had widespread adoption across the state of California, and we've also had jurisdictions from all around the country adopt, including Sun Prairie, Wisconsin, Washington, Illinois, Montgomery County, Maryland, Houston, Texas, Harrisonburg, Virginia, and then of course, Culpeper County, Virginia. In fact, this map is a little bit out of date. As you can see, some of those are not highlighted here. And then many more jurisdictions are working through this onboarding process with SolarAPP and are in discussions about launching a pilot by the end of this year. Although SolarAPP is not yet adopted across all states, there has been significant interest from installers and jurisdictions who want to use the tool across the country. Just to give an insight into the impact SolarAPP can have for a local government, we highlighted this case study out of Tucson, Arizona, who was one of our first jurisdictions to pilot and adopt SolarAPP. So since piloting, Tucson has successfully issued over 5,000 permits using SolarAPP, allowing over 30,000 kilowatt hours of residential solar to be installed locally. Utilizing SolarAPP has allowed their average permit process time to go down from 4 weeks to instantaneous and save their permitting and building staff over 5,000 hours. This slide shows some of the results from all 173 of the communities that have been piloting or fully launched SolarAPP to date. So to date, SolarAPP has issued over 34,000 solar permits across those communities, which includes over 6,500 revisions. And we've issued roughly 6,000 permits across over 125 jurisdictions through our PV Plus storage pilots. Among these communities, we've seen no time added to inspections of PV systems in the field. Speaking of inspections, projects that are permitted through SolarAPP were installed and inspected 13 days faster than projects using a traditional process. And all of this is made possible through SolarAPP's ability to provide instantaneous reviews, reducing average permit review time to less than 1 day and saving local government staff over 30,000 hours. Additionally, SolarAPP projects are about 29% less likely to fail inspections than traditional projects. And then as you can see down on the right-hand side of this slide here, the median business days for permit review under SolarAPP are all less than 1 day. And this is especially advantageous if you're a community looking to achieve SolSmart Gold or Platinum designations. We're super excited to report that Fremont, California just became the first jurisdiction in the country to be designated SolSmart Platinum, and this was made possible through their adoption of SolarAPP. Now let's talk a little bit about what the tool actually does. So this slide gives a high-level overview of the process that contractors actually follow in SolarAPP. So first, an installer is going to input their project information and spend about 15 minutes or so moving through fire, structural, electrical, and workers' comp questions. There's about 50 questions in total that comprise SolarAPP. And then across these forms, our system is automating compliance checks that you or your staff otherwise have to do yourselves manually. Second, SolarAPP completes its compliance checks. So if an installer inputs anything that's non-compliant, the system gives them live feedback, guiding them towards the compliant answer. And because it's automated, it can really quickly catch code issues, typos, and other kinds of errors. It's designed to be really responsive, so it's going to instantaneously return corrections and provide guidance towards getting a correct answer in an input field. And this overall eases the process that otherwise requires a back and forth between a local office and an installer. Because of this, SolarAPP can help limit the amount of questions a jurisdiction is going to get on basic applications, especially from new installers. And this allows permit technicians to focus efforts on complicated solar permits rather than their typical systems. And then third, if a contractor completes a compliant application, they'll pay the SolarAPP administrative fee and your permitting fees. Once that payment is complete, the permit is issued instantaneously with the inspection checklist and other content for the inspection team to verify in the field. And again, this is all through a no-touch process and allows for 24/7 instant solar permitting. Once a project has been successfully submitted by the contractor, SolarAPP returns the approval documents. An example of this is shown on the slide here, which includes the inspection checklist for that project. The inspection checklist includes all relevant parts of the approved system for the inspector to verify out in the field. All inspection checklists also have a QR code in the bottom corner that can be scanned to access the most up-to-date project plans. And then the last thing I'll say on inspections is that we also have 2 IREC trainings that inspectors will take on how to inspect SolarAPP approved systems. These IREC trainings count for continuing education credit and take only about an hour to complete. And once an inspector's completed these trainings, they'll be ready to inspect both SolarAPP approved PV and PV plus storage systems. SolarAPP is also adaptable, and we offer 2 different options to meet the needs of your jurisdiction. So the first option, which is shown on the top pathway here, is what we call the standalone model. And this is for jurisdictions who only currently accept applications via email, mail, or in person. So the standalone model starts with an installer inputting their project in SolarAPP and paying our $25 administrative fee. The contractor then puts your city or county's, pays your city or county's fees in SolarAPP using Stripe. The project approval documents are then stored in SolarAPP for easy future access. And finally, the permit gets issued instantaneously. And all permit and inspection documents are sent to both the installer and the jurisdiction. The second model shown on the lower pathway here is what we call the integrated model. And this is going to be for jurisdictions that are already using some type of online permitting portal, such as Acela, EnerGov, eTrackit, et cetera. We're compatible with just about any of them, as long as they can fit a few basic requirements. This method is going to start with the installer inputting their project and paying our $25 administrative fee in SolarAPP as well. Then the installer receives the approval documents for the system, and then the installer can be redirected back into your existing system where they will upload those approval documents for the project directly into your government software system, and that's where they'll pay any city or county permitting fees. We are happy to announce that SolarAPP also now has an API available for jurisdictions to use with their existing software. So this API will allow your software to verify SolarAPP project IDs and instantly have the SolarAPP documents uploaded to your existing system. If you would like to proceed without using an API, your jurisdiction can absolutely still use SolarAPP, but the API is a new option that we have available for jurisdictions who are interested. After the installer has completed that transfer or the API has completed that transfer from SolarAPP to your existing system, your system is then able to instantly issue them the permit. So if moving forward with adoption would be interesting to you, this slide walks through what that process would look like. So it's overall just a 4-step process. So first, we need to select the right model of SolarAPP for your jurisdiction. So it's either going to be the integration or standalone version that I talked about on the previous slide, depending upon whether or not you have an existing software system in place. The next step is to input your local settings. So this is going to include things like permitting contacts, wind speed, snow load, temperature variables, model code years, and a few other pieces that our team can assist with. The next thing to do is to set up your instant workflow. So if you would be moving forward with the standalone model, this step includes setting up permit payments in SolarAPP through Stripe. And if you would be moving forward with the integration model because you have an existing software system, you would need to set up an instant workflow with your government software. And we have plenty of assistance available to help you do that. And then finally, it's time to launch. And this typically involves inviting about 4 installers to use SolarAPP for permitting and start and run a pilot if necessary. And then finally, you can open up SolarAPP to all installers in your area. So that's it for our introduction section. We have some resources on this slide here, but if we want to shift to questions or something, that would be great.
Awesome. Thanks, Katie. Yeah, we'll pause to see if folks have any questions. That was kind of a really quick dive into SolarAPP, some of the benefits of it, some of the statistics from the last couple of years. I think it's really interesting. They've done a performance review for, I believe, the last 2 years. And they're going to be doing another one as well, where they really look into the numbers, the time saved for local governments, how SolarAPP installed and inspected systems compared to non-SolarAPP installed and inspected systems. Some very interesting data there. Katie, in terms of kind of top 3 takeaways from what you just told everybody, how would you list out your top 3?
Ooh, I would say number 1, SolarAPP is a great way to bolster your solar permitting in your jurisdiction if you're looking to achieve sustainability goals or overall foster renewable energy in your community. I would say number 2 is that SolarAPP is a really easy and compatible system for your jurisdiction to work with. Steve Pope, who I think is on this call, is often saying, and I don't think unfairly, that it should be one of the easiest projects that a jurisdiction undertakes. We like to hopefully make it simple. And then I think the third takeaway is that it's kind of a win-win. We see good feedback from installers, jurisdictions, sustainability folks. Everybody seems to be, happy with the service that SolarAPP is providing here. So it seems to be working, at least so far.
Hey, Nick,
That's great.
if I could interject here for a second, we will share these slides with those folks who are on and those who were able to make the webinar, so they have the presentation as well.
Yep. And there's a lot of great information in this slide deck. You can see there's a bunch of different links here as well. The SolarAPP website has a lot of great information there. They kind of have an FAQ that does deep dives on very specific topics in terms of setting it up, getting started, a lot of the engineering details as well. Katie, in terms of like assistance helping local governments with this process, what does NREL and or the larger SolarAPP team provide local governments?
Yeah, so we provide pretty much as much assistance as you would like with this project. We have a pretty large team of folks who work on this, both from NREL. We also work with UL, SIA, other folks, installers work with us all the time. So we have a pretty robust team of support to assist with every part of the process. That email contact that's on the slide right there, team@solar-app.org, is sort of our catch-all for the entire team. And if you email that, you're going to get a response from the exact right person who should be handling that question. So we offer pretty much 5 days a week total support and as much as you need to help you get onboarded.
That's great. One more question, then we'll turn it over to learn about the Culpeper County experience. Could you just kind of either clarify or maybe explain a little bit more about the fee structure? We know that SolarAPP has that $25 fee for each permit. How does that relate to what a local government may charge for their solar permit applications? Just kind of provide an additional detail there.
Yeah, no, great question. So SolarAPP does charge a $25 permit fee on the installer side of things. So when an installer inputs a project, they're going to pay that $25 fee. And that covers them for the project that they're submitting, as well as 3 revisions. If they get to the 4th revision, they do incur another fee, but those first 3 are free. And otherwise, we don't mess with the current fee system. Typically, jurisdictions keep their existing fee system exactly as is, and they just add this $25 on top of it. But whether you would be moving forward with the standalone where we would input your fee system, we can just copy over exactly what you want to charge into Stripe, and that's how we would handle it from our end. Or if you have an existing software system, it would just work as it always has. So we don't have anything to do with the fees in a sense. We just add on that $25 and the rest is up to you, and you can keep it exactly as it's always been if you want.
Great. Thank you. All right. We'll come back to Katie and her colleague Emily later for additional Q&A, but right now I'd like to turn it over to Bob and Richard with Culpeper County. We could just start with some quick introductions about yourselves, and then we can kind of dive in and learn about your experience with SolarAPP.
All right, I'll lead off. Bob Orr, I'm a building official here in Culpeper, and worked in this jurisdiction for over 23 years. We have somewhat of a small staff. We have 5 inspectors and 3 office staff, and we're on the cusp of another building boom, as people in Virginia can understand. So it's going to get real busy here real quick. We have had SolarAPP since about May 22, May. So far, we've had 114 projects. We have 28 active installers, and we have a turnaround of about roughly the same day or 1 to 2 days. The way our system works is the solar installer gets approved through SolarAPP. The system sends the information to us, and in our jurisdiction, we have to have a zoning permit from either town or county. And also, if there's a building permit required, then that would be an additional permit. And there's information that unfortunately isn't on the SolarAPP that we need is the contract amount, the valuation, and the power provider. So we ask that they put that in the comments. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. So that can delay them a little bit. The quicker they get back to us, the better the return time. So quick turnaround, a lot quicker than it used to be. Review time, way faster. These projects would probably take 4 weeks to get a first look, and now they're coming through already approved. So what we did is I took basically our average solar permit fee, including plan review, and I discounted the plan review. So what they're paying for is our admin time and our inspection time. So it's a pretty decent deal.
That's great. Did you want to have Richard provide any additional kind of commentary?
Yes, please.
Hi, Richard Grace. I'm the senior building inspector for Culpeper County. Basically the person out in the field that's dealing with the inspections, getting the inspection checklist through SolarAPP, going through that list, doing the inspection with the list. What I found personally as an inspector and a plan reviewer for these systems is one, they've taken away the plan review. Absolutely fantastic. Because they can really they end up taking a lot of time through going through my plan review process as opposed to going through the SolarAPP process. One of the other things that I found very appealing is that they're for most of your very simple systems. Bob had given the stats as far as what we've actually gone through as far as the SolarAPP system, and I'd have to say that just without having actual numbers, 80%, 90% of what we get are simple systems and have the ability to go through SolarAPP. The other 10% more complicated systems, I understand that SolarAPP is getting more into the possibility of ESS systems as well. And when that time comes, it'll be interesting to get that information. I have been taking on the task of doing the inspections and going over the checklist and verifying what it is on the checklist that we need to see and what is actually out in the field. I've gotten real comfortable with it. I've started to train one of our other inspectors with this process so that we can start sharing that information in those inspections. And it's not like we're overloaded with them yet, but I imagine that as summertime comes around, we're going to be really backed up, and we're going to need more inspectors that are capable of doing the solar inspections as well as their routine inspections. But overall, I find that the SolarAPP permitting process and plan review process has been very helpful to me. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you.
Hey,
Bob, curious. Oh, go ahead, Steve.
yeah, Richard, I was just going to ask you to kind of expound on that thought about your training your kind of apprentice there to help replace you. What have their feedback been about the process?
So I've been training Justin. Justin is very excited about him expanding his abilities in the inspection field. He's got a little bit of an electrical background, so he finds it intriguing as well. I think he's very excited about it and having the ability to expand his contribution here in Culpeper County is probably very exciting for him.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, Nick,
Bob,
I
I
saw that there
kinda
was
had
a
a
hand raised. I saw there was a hand raised by Mark Rodriguez. So Mark, I'm gonna allow you to talk. So please ask your question.
Hello, everyone. I guess I'll just say hi if you guys can hear me. My name is Mark Rodriguez. I'm the executive director of SolarAPP. I just dropped in here late and realized that I don't have any video, so I can't even show my face on here. But my other role is the subject matter expert for the backend electrical code compliance check. So if you guys do have any technical questions about what SolarAPP is doing from a code compliance perspective, that's kind of my forte. I'll just leave it there and not really have any specific comments. Thanks, though.
Actually, Mark, while you're here, I was going to turn it over to you a little bit later on, but do you want to provide kind of a 90-second overview of the SolarAPP Foundation? You introduced yourself as the executive director, but a lot of folks may not know about the foundation itself and what it's been set up to do.
Yeah, sure. So as you guys all know, SolarAPP was kind of created through a grant from the DOE. It was hosted by National Renewable Energy Lab. That's where Katie's coming from right now. National Renewable Energy Lab still has the reins of SolarAPP, although we were going through a transition period. So later on this year, around June, the software is going to go from the NREL servers to the foundation. I'm currently the only employee of the SolarAPP Foundation. I'm directed by a board of directors that's made up of local government, manufacturers, some of our industry leaders. But what I'm going to do over the next year is set the foundation up to be able to run the SolarAPP software. We'll be working with Underwriters Laboratories. They will be our AHJ onboarding arm. So as your cities get through the process, Underwriters Laboratories will guide them and make sure they can get their jurisdiction set up. The foundation will take over software development. So a lot of people want a lot of different features from SolarAPP. I think it's showcased itself as a great potential for automating the permitting process. So we're not only talking about PV and PV plus storage, but EV chargers and hot water heaters and all kinds of other building electrification and decarbonization technologies. I'll be taking that on over the next few years. You shouldn't really see any change in service. The idea is that we're just going to make a smooth transition from NREL to running the foundation. So I don't expect any drops or limitations in service. I just look forward to increased features and ability. We're undergoing some critical software changes right now, but those changes are going to allow us to be really flexible in dealing with local government. We understand that we have to be able to be flexible to take care of local ordinances and environmental conditions and other processes. So I'm really looking forward to being flexible and seeing how I can help solve your local government issues when it comes to automated permitting.
Great. Thanks, Mark.
Yeah.
So Bob, wanted to turn it back to you and just ask, what did the process look like in terms of starting to use SolarAPP, getting approval? Did you make the final say and said, this sounds like a great idea, let's test it out, and then if it works for us, we'll continue using it? Or did you have to go to your county board or, get sign off from a county administrator?
No, I did not need further approval. I did present it to the Board of Supervisors and to my county administrator. They were all in. Anything to benefit the customer, they were definitely behind. And we did not go with the piloting classic pilot where we chose some contractors and then saw how it went. I knew what was coming our way. I knew our resources were stretched. So I went all in, picked a day, and everything had to go through SolarAPP as of that day.
Wow.
It was all or nothing. So,
Yeah.
and it's worked out well. It was a little rocky in the beginning with a lot of folks that weren't, really attuned with it. They had to do their training and so forth, but it worked itself out. It's been successful.
That's interesting. That's kind of Steve, if you're available, or maybe Katie. Steve's actually going to be, I think he's at the train station for some travel, so maybe Katie could jump in. That's not the Culpeper County experience in that regard is not necessarily the traditional SolarAPP experience. A lot of times the local government may take it for a bit of a test drive first, just to pilot it with a couple of installers and then expand it. Could you just want to comment on that if that's what we see, or are we seeing adoption kind of increase a little bit quicker?
Actually, if you don't mind, I think I have a
Yeah.
pause between PA announcements. Um, I think Culpeper was actually one of the first to open our eyes to the idea of doing an open pilot, and that has really taken off across the country because as opposed to just kind of limiting it to for the Tesla, Sun Sun Power, and Freedom Forever. Those are traditional four that you would have. It does allow us to expand, especially in different regions that we're just now getting into. So if there are local contractors that do a lot of volume, it really does enable them, a place like Culpeper to get from a wider cast a wider net. And also it allows those other contractors that are not familiar with SolarAPP to start to understand it and to start, taking the trainings and starting to understand this, I can get an immediate permit. Oh, I can have something check my math and it only costs $25. That's great. It's like that kind of stuff. It really does help it helped us understand that that's a value to other jurisdictions. And we've started now, op, you know, opening it up as an option for everybody.
I'll just add to that we have seen, I would say, an increase in the number that jump straight to adoption even. That really came about in the wake of the widespread adoption across California in response to their legislation there. But we saw a lot that just onboarded straight, ready to go. And they've had a good experience with it from what I can tell. At least they keep doing it. So they must be having a good experience with it. So.
Must be. And I think what we've all alluded to here is the fact that it really is a win-win-win. Might make sure I got the right number of wins there, but it's a win for the local governments. It's a win for the contractors and installers. And then that means it's a win for the household as well. That's getting solar installed. They're getting their systems quicker. Generally they may be getting a slightly better system in the fact that the installer is doing a good job there. We're seeing less failed inspections as well. That was part of, I think, the latest SolarAPP performance report. And Bob, it's like you all had to make kind of a strategic decision when you were thinking about that, because you have limited staff, you're a small team, you didn't necessarily have the time and the resources to test it out for 3 months. You said, we see value in it right now. Let's do it. Let's go all in. And we're going to work through some of the kinks. We know that NREL is here to support us. Additional members of the SolarAPP team are here. And it's been a good experience since then. I know we need to turn it over and move on to hear a little bit about SolSmart, but Bob and Richard, from your perspective, if you would like to see one thing added to SolarAPP, what is that one thing on your wish list?
Well, first of all, I would like to, and this is not SolarAPP's responsibility. We do use Civic Gov permitting software, which is part of Civic Plus and Unicode. So I would like to see that integrated. That is my wish list. That's my number one. And that would help, again, speed up the process just that much more. So we're going to work towards that, see if the software vendor would be open to that.
That's great. Richard, anything on your wish list?
I don't know if it's something that SolarAPP can contribute to. It's quite possible that you could. Expanded contractor training. We know that we've got folks out there, they're going through the SolarAPP system, they're going through the training, but are all the right people getting the training? If there's a way to get that information out there to not only your installers that need the training, your techs that you have meeting inspectors out on the field need training. People just need to become more aware of the SolarAPP system and how it works and the checklist and the whole 9 yards. The training is good. I've taken the training. Justin's taken the training as far as inspections go. But if there's a way that we can get the word out there to contractors to expand that training to just beyond the person who's dealing with SolarAPP, that would be great. That would be my
Yeah.
wish list.
No, that's great. Thank you both for your feedback. All right, that was wonderful. We're going to turn it over now to Aaron Berryhill with the Virginia Department of Energy, and he's going to talk a little bit about SolSmart Platinum. As Bob alluded to earlier, there's quite a few jurisdictions in Northern Virginia that are SolSmart designated. It was bronze, silver, and gold up until last year when the program unveiled the new platinum level designation. So Aaron's going to walk through what that means and a little bit about the SolSmart updates that have occurred.
Yeah, thanks, Nick. I'm Aaron Berryhill. I'm the solar program manager at Virginia Department of Energy. And so my role is really focused on being a resource for local governments. And I'll first say that probably SolarAPP is one of the more actionable and tangible resources that local governments can take on, particularly from a permanent inspection standpoint in terms of supporting solar. SolarAPP is a part of a kind of a much larger landscape of resources and actions that local governments can take to support solar in their communities. And one of the kind of largest sort of umbrellas is the National SolSmart program. And I help to kind of implement that here in Virginia. So just really quickly, I'll kind of run through the program and then I will address kind of the specifics of the Platinum, which is particularly relevant to some of the things you've heard today about SolarAPP. So just a high-level overview of why local government action is important and where SolarAPP fits into the kind of the larger framework. Significant proportion of the cost of solar comes from the so-called soft costs that are, not from the actual hardware. And there's a fair amount that local permitting jurisdictions and local governments can do to help reduce some of those costs. Of course, the streamlining of permitting inspection, of which SolarAPP can do a lot there, is one of those. Supporting local consumer education, leading by example by installing solar on public buildings and public facilities, assisting with group purchasing, filling gaps in financing are all kind of other actions that local governments can take and are things that the SolSmart program can assist with. So overall, what is the SolSmart program? It's a national designation and technical assistance program that U.S. Department of Energy has funded through IREC and ICMA. It's been around for a number of years, and over 450 local governments have already achieved some level of designation. Through the program, there's no cost technical assistance, and local governments work towards a designation and work through specific criteria and achieve resources to kind of help them become local leaders in supporting solar development. So here in Virginia, just the kind of the way it looks, I'll skip ahead. So myself at the Virginia Department of Energy have partnered with UVA to kind of offer a Virginia-specific SolSmart program, I guess you could say. We still work within the umbrella of the national program, but we felt that it was a national program that really kind of fit some of the needs that we wanted to help encourage some of our local governments in Virginia. So we work alongside the national program to provide no-cost technical assistance to help local governments through a variety of national best practices. And I think myself and UVA, we kind of add that extra local flavor within the context of state policy to add a little bit more of that nuance. And then, we really want to celebrate communities across Virginia that have received this nationally recognized designation for solar energy growth. And we oftentimes will do press releases of our own to celebrate communities in Virginia that have achieved a SolSmart designation. And of course, any local government and regional organization can request a consultation anytime with myself to talk a little bit more about SolSmart. As far as just in Virginia right now, Northern Virginia has been a leader, not the only designees for the SolSmart program. Across the state, there are 3 regional planning district commissions, I will also note towns are eligible to participate in SolSmart. We have 4 towns in Virginia, 10 cities and 12 counties throughout the years that have achieved designations, and some have leveled up their designations or more recently. As Bob mentioned, the Northern Virginia Regional Commission is currently gold, and a number of their jurisdictions are also varying levels of designations. So as Nick alluded to, there was previously 3 levels of designation, and most recently there's now a platinum designation that started last year. And I will note there are currently no communities in Virginia that have achieved platinum. There are a couple that are working towards it. Fremont, California, I think was announced last week as the first platinum designee for the SolSmart program. And so it's sort of a somewhat of a choose your own adventure. We've had some communities that kind of got started with bronze, which is a relatively easy kind of beginner and just kind of hitting the sort of basics. The silver is really focused on providing more staff level trainings, particularly around permitting inspection. Gold is really working on codifying some of the clear by right allowances for rooftop solar. And then I will get a little bit more into the specifics of the platinum. Just a little bit of kind of what goes into a SolSmart designation. Like I said, it is a little bit of a choose your own adventure. There are some specific prerequisites, but overall there are 92 criteria across 5 different categories that have varying point values for which local governments can work towards achieving a designation. The one that I think the SolSmart program really does a lot of focus on is the permitting inspection. There are 28 criteria, the most criteria. And just an example of what one of those might be is using an online process for solar permit approval and submission. So I think you could probably see the obvious overlap with SolarAPP. Planning and zoning is another topic where there's a pretty significant focus within the SolSmart program. Like I mentioned previously, making sure that the zoning ordinance allows rooftop solar by right in all zoning ordinances in all zoning areas is kind of one of the kind of highest standards in the planning and zoning category. From the government operations perspective, sort of one of the highest standards there is installing solar on local government facilities. Community engagement, really working on kind of defining local goals and strategies within local communities around solar. And then from a market development perspective, an example is supporting a local solarize or co-op campaign to support local residents in deploying solar. So just a little bit more of the specifics of the designation structure. So the new platinum designation level adds kind of quite a bit of work, but I think it is achievable in that it requires 350 total points through a variety of those criteria. And like I just shared some of the examples, and there are 4 specific prerequisites. And so what those prerequisites look like, obviously the first one is kind of going through the bronze, silver, and gold. The second one, which is probably most relevant to what we've talked about today, is some form of instant or automatic approval for residential rooftop solar. SolarAPP in particular is probably the most relevant example of that, and is a prerequisite and requirement for the platinum. So certainly communities that are interested in SolarAPP Plus, there's a lot of overlap between the platinum level. And from what I've heard from other communities and kind of with the SolSmart program, that's kind of been the biggest hurdle to get over for the platinum is getting that SolarAPP Plus in place. The third prerequisite for the platinum is publishing some type of community metrics around the number of solar and storage that's been permitted. I will note that if you have SolarAPP Plus, this is actually pretty easy to accomplish because you're going to be able to have all of that data in a centralized place. The fourth one is actually installing solar on a local government facility or land. I do know like a lot of our Northern Virginia localities and across the state have been deploying solar, particularly on schools and public buildings. So that's increasingly becoming a little bit easier for some of our local governments that have been working that up over the years. And then lastly is, building and formalizing partnerships with other community-based organizations to define solar goals and implementation strategies. And, certainly there's a lot that local governments have already been doing on their own that make them eligible for some of these criteria, but I will also note that part of the SolSmart program is that myself and the larger SolSmart program will help local governments work towards these, various prerequisites and other criteria that they may not have already accomplished, but are interested in working towards. So finally, I'll just note, if you are interested in getting started, you can certainly email myself, and I will kind of make sure we get all the proper people in place to, have a follow-up conversation with you. You can also just go to the SolSmart homepage, and there's a button to click Join SolSmart, and you can fill out your information, and that will also get to the right people as well. With that, I'll pause, and if there's any questions or comments that people want to add in.
I just jump in and say, not only get started for those that aren't designated, but for those that are, SolSmart is always looking to help local governments level up, improve their level of designation, adopt the latest best practices for solar energy, and just making sure that their local jurisdictions have the right practices in place. And then we're looking for that second platinum designation as well. We saw Fremont was the first in California, but there's always the first on the East Coast here and the first in Virginia. And I know Bob has said he really wants to get NVRC platinum designation, so he'd love to do that along with some of the local governments in the Northern Virginia region as well. Aaron, thank you for providing that overview, but could you just kind of highlight again the fact that you have the SolSmart team plus, you plus folks at UVA that are really there to provide this assistance to local governments?
Yeah, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I like to think we're a little bit unique here in Virginia on how we choose to implement SolSmart, and that you're kind of getting a little bit extra. Since my role is already to support local governments, we kind of brought the SolSmart program, that's a national program, within some of the things that I do at Virginia Department of Energy. So myself, my colleague Elizabeth Marshall at UVA, and then our main technical assistance provider at the national level is Zach Green from the World Resources Institute that works in Virginia. So the three of us kind of form a team of outreach to local governments, where we're getting the kind of national SolSmart program from our technical assistance provider. And then myself and UVA are providing kind of that back end local government with kind of some of the needs and questions that come up from local governments in Virginia. And so we can be a little bit more responsive and supportive of some of those state and local specific questions that come in, and walk local governments through the process and work with the national program to kind of achieve those criteria. And like I said, we really want to celebrate and encourage SolSmart in our state as much as possible. So we are a little bit competitive, and we really do want to encourage local governments here in Virginia to be platinum and kind of prove that we are very competitive and excited about SolSmart program.
Great, thank you. As Bob just mentioned in the chat, if you have any questions, drop it in the chat, drop it in the Q&A box. We're here to answer anything. Aaron, I think we've already highlighted kind of next steps, what to do to get in touch with you if folks want to level up or explore platinum. I'm going to turn it back over to Katie real quick in terms of SolarAPP and next steps. Obviously there's a lot of great resources folks can look into, but what would you kind of highlight ideally as, here's what you do next, and then after that, what would it look like?
Yeah, so we kind of have two first steps that jurisdictions usually take when they're interested in using the tool. The first is typically to attend a demo, but folks who joined us today or who are watching this have kind of fulfilled that criteria, but you're welcome to send more members of your team to demos. We hold them every other week. Our next one is coming up next Tuesday, the 20th. So we have those every other week, and jurisdictions can come and listen to the demo and get a little bit more Q&A time with different members of our team to answer any outstanding questions you might have. So that's one thing that folks usually do when they're ready to come on with SolarAPP. The second thing, the thing that really sort of puts you on our radar and puts you on our like regular schedule of folks to reach out to, is to register for SolarAPP. So Steve Pope, if you wouldn't mind, do you have the link to, read my mind. So yeah, the very first thing, if you are confident that you're ready to go with SolarAPP and ready to, start with the process, is to go to that link that Steve put in the chat and register your jurisdiction for SolarAPP. We also have a registration guide that is hosted on our website that walks you through how to fill that out for your jurisdiction. But once you start that registration process, you're on our radar. We'll periodically reach out to you for assistance if we see, progress isn't coming along. But that's kind of the two next steps: is attend a demo if you or someone from your team still needs to, and register for SolarAPP as soon as you think that you might be interested. You're not locked into anything once you start registration. There's no contract with SolarAPP at any point. You're never obligated to continue using it. But if you register with the tool, then we kind of have you in our view.
Right, thank you. And let Bob know as well at NVRC. It's always nice to go through a process like this with a buddy, or if there's a cohort within Northern Virginia that we could put together and just kind of help multiple jurisdictions move along in the process. That shared learning and shared experience can always be very valuable as well. The same goes if there's several of the local governments that would like to level up and or explore that platinum designation. There's a lot of synergies and overlap between these two programs and between the technical assistance opportunities and what the teams can provide. I'll pause there and see if anybody else that has presented today has any additional kind of comments that they'd like to share. Doesn't look like we have any questions in the Q&A. I haven't checked, but we can always wrap up 5 minutes early and give folks some time back.
Well, again, Nick, I want to thank you and NREL and Culpeper County and Aaron at the Virginia Department of Energy. To those who have joined us, thank you. And those who've been listening in, we will post the video and the presentations on our website. Thank you to everybody for doing that. We were pleased to be the second region in the country to be SolSmart Gold designated. And we look forward to perhaps being the first platinum in the country to do so. But we look forward to sharing this information. Between 2021 and 2022, there were over 2,300 solar arrays installed here in Northern Virginia. Our SolarAPP program last year resulted in 223 contracts. And I think this, when we get the final numbers from our friends at COG, I'm sure we will have done anywhere between 2,000 and 3,000 new solar arrays in Northern Virginia alone. So from a local government perspective, and as a former mayor in the town of Purcellville, if we could do something quicker with less cost and meet our long-term sustainability and energy goals, SolAPP Plus seems a logical way to do things. So I appreciate that perspective from both Bob Orr and Mr. Grace from Culpeper County.
Thank you.
Fantastic. I think that's a wrap. Thank you all for joining and have a great day.
Thank you, Nick. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks,
Thanks
gang.
for hosting.